Hello, Facebook. I'm happy to be live with you today for Tea with Tina. Per usual, we're going to wait for a few seconds to see some people arrive. It makes me feel less insecure about myself. We've got a couple people here already. Hello, good afternoon indeed. The sun's out here today in Minneapolis, which brings me great joy. Great joy. We got 7 people. You don't like to wait till we crawl into the double digits to start. You know what I mean? Just at least 10 people in the room. There's 10, 12. Ooh, we're cooking with gas now, folks. We are doing it. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see you here. 15 people. We're cruising. I'm just gonna wait a couple more seconds. Hey, Kelsey. Gotta love when the Alpha Gam staff watches. Like, y'all work in Alpha Gam land all day. Then you come hang out with me at Alpha Gam land at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's amazing. Hello. We're in the 20s now. Here we go, folks. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tea with Tina on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. because alliteration sells. I'm really excited that you're here. Oh my gosh, Kelsey, how sweet is that? It's the best part of my Tuesday, so that's amazing. I'm sure normally at this time we have people who come every week, so most of you probably know my face and know who I am at this point. But just in case we've got some new folks in the house, hi everyone. My name is Tina Van Steenbergen. I am a professional public speaker, and I spend my time working with women. I believe that women need women. And I am on a mission in the world to help women feel less alone. I think we go through a lot of stuff by ourselves that we don't have to go through by ourselves. And I don't know if that's ever been more true than, right now, as the world feels like it's ending all around us, changing every single day. And so that's what this whole thing is about. That's what I am about, okay? I want women to feel less alone in the world. That doesn't mean if you're a man here that I don't care about you. I hope that you're here. I'm glad that you're here. It's just most of what we talk about is women focused. But this week, warn you right away up top, this is a quarantina. This is a quarantina week on Tea with Tina, which means I don't have a lot of content prepared for you because I told you every once in a while I just want to do a check-in and not try to teach you to think about something else, but just to let us all think about what is actually happening in the world right now. Give ourselves a little bit of space, a little bit of grace to exist in this world and to talk about what it feels like to be going through what we're going through right now. So that's what this week is going to be about. It's been about 3 weeks since we've had a check-in, so it feels like a good time to do that. I will tell you, the reason I tell you that right away up front is because I want this one to feel very interactive, maybe more interactive than most. So I'm going to tell you right now, I would love for you the whole time to be tossing in questions, to be tossing in comments, answers to the questions about how you're doing. Because like I told you, I want women to feel less alone in the world. And I think my favorite part of Tea with Tina is when you all bond and connect with one another in the comments, when you toss things in here that make people feel less crazy and make people feel like they are not alone. So that magic comes from you. And I want us to make sure we're doing it the whole time today. So as I'm talking to you about what's going on in my world, I want you to toss in, if you have questions for me, I'm going to circle back at the end and answer a lot of questions about how you're dealing with quarantine. And if you want to talk about productivity and creativity, we can talk about that. If you want to talk about surviving, you want to talk about processing our emotions, you want to talk about living with your roommates and partners and children and all those people, nothing's off limits here today. But just get real chatty in the comments and I will circle back and answer your questions, but I would love for you to connect with one another. I'm doing all right? If I'm going to ask you to talk to me about how you're feeling in quarantine, it's only fair for me to go first. I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm trying really hard not to just keep telling people that I'm doing well, right? Like people asking, how are you? And you're like, oh, I'm so good. It's like, is that true? And on a normal day, it's worth it to ask ourselves that question. But I think quarantine presents itself with a really cool opportunity to tell the truth when people ask us that question. Like, how are you? Nobody's answer is good right now. Nobody feels great every day right now. And so I feel like we all have permission to be just a little bit more honest when we answer that question, instead of being like, oh my God, I'm so good. Be like, I haven't been outside in 96 hours. So that's weird. But otherwise I'm healthy, right? Like, trying to answer it with a little bit more honesty and realism right now, because I think we all can do that. But for me, I'm all right. I have good days and bad days. And I will say that for me, the good days outweigh the bad days, which is really lovely, and makes me feel really blessed. Yesterday was a bad day. I overslept, which, never sets anybody up for a success or for a great day. But my mission yesterday was to go to the grocery store. It was our weekly run. And James had some work to do. And so I geared up and headed to the grocery store. And the grocery store for me used to be a place that was just very fun, very relaxing. I just put on my headphones. I've got my list. I take my time. I just really found it to be a peaceful place. Also for me, that meant that I was home and cooking instead of on the road. So that was always a little joyful for me. And so it's always been this calming, relaxing place for me. And that is not true anymore. Get to the grocery store and got to make sure that I have everything that I need. Got to make sure my mask is on tight. I got my gloves all ready to go. And what was once this peaceful, tranquil, relaxing place has now become this mad sprint to the finish, right? I feel like I got to get in and get out as fast as possible. I have to be as efficient with my time as possible. Only touch things I know I'm going to put in my cart. Make sure my cart is sanitized before I put stuff in my cart. Not that it really matters. I'm going to bring everything home and then sanitize it when I get home. I feel like I have to be very cognizant of my spacing around other people. And some places in the country have started to do one-way aisles, so you can only walk up one aisle and then down the next aisle. That is not happening yet in Minnesota, but I'm still very cognizant of making sure you're not too close to anybody. You don't want to make anybody else feel uncomfortable. And then just making sure that my mask doesn't fall down while I'm trying to pick out produce, and then I got to get to the checkout counter. And is it better to go through the self-checkout, which doesn't seem to get cleaned per guest, or is it better to go interact with another person? I don't know, but it's it is a sprint to the finish, and it is stressful. And I got all my groceries and got in the car, and by the time I got in the car, I was just cranky because I missed the grocery store. I miss going outside and not having to wear a mask. I miss things that were once normal that now feel very far away and very different. And I feel a little bummed about that. And I came home, and for the rest of the day, I was fairly angsty about it. Just ugh. Just throwing myself a little pouting party every once in a while. Do you ever feel like you're a toddler or a high school straight up Tina in high school throwing a temper tantrum because my mom didn't extend my curfew, right? Just cranky and angsty. And that was sort of the theme of my day yesterday. And I got on the phone last night with some of my best friends, and we hung out and had a cocktail and laughed, and that definitely improved my day. But there was a few moments in there where I was cranky. And then there are days where I feel really great, if you're allowed to feel great in all of this. It's a day where I get to bake some cookies, a day where I get to sweat, where I get to read on my couch in the sunshine, right? There are things about this that bring me great joy, or things that I've rediscovered about myself, about my partner, about our life that I was missing or skipping over pre-quarantine. So we're on a roller coaster, and it doesn't matter if it's week 1 or, as it is right now, week 6. It's just a lot. Y'all, it's a lot. And there are good days and bad days. There are peaks and valleys. There are high highs and low lows, and that is okay. So I have some strategies that I've learned from really brilliant people that are helping me cope with all of that, and I want to share them with you today. I see you chatting away. Please don't stop. Please keep doing it. It's my favorite part of the whole thing. But also make sure if you have questions as I toss these strategies in there, to toss them, ask your questions. I will also link as many of these resources for you in the comments when we're done here as I can, because I think these voices are brilliant and helpful, and I want you to have access to them. So understanding that we are on a roller coaster here, there's sort of 3 strategies I want us to think about that are helpful in moments of joy and in moments of angst and frustration. So the first thing I want us to think about is trying to practice kindness. And I know the first time we hung out here together, all we talked about was quarantine kindness, and that's fair and accurate and the right thing to do. But in this instance, I'm talking about kindness to yourself. The brilliant voice here that I'm citing is that of my husband, who is James Robolata, who wrote that book right there. And he tells people that he learned at a very, very, very young age that he needed to be kind to other people. But he didn't learn until his 30s that he needed to be kind to himself. And I think that is very real. And I hope that we are doing our best to extend kindness to the world. Every time I interact with some sort of person who's working in the world, I thank them profusely and tell them that I hope people are being kind to them. I have made some donations to some food banks that I think are helping people in my local area. I think we can push kindness out into the world, but I think we also have to accept a little bit of it back our own direction. We're not superhuman. Nobody was prepared for this. Nobody was prepared to be a full-time worker that now has to work from home while also being a full-time parent who also now needs to be a full-time homeschool teacher. Most of us weren't prepared for that. Most of us were not prepared to go into work one day, clean out our desk, and bring our stuff home. Most of us were not prepared to be furloughed. Most of us were not prepared to be financially stable during a crisis where we can't work. Most of us were not prepared to not be able to go see our family members on holidays and birthdays and just to visit them because most of us were not prepared for this. And so if you're not handling it as gracefully as you wish that you were, I hope that you're giving yourself a little bit of kindness and grace. Yesterday I had a pouty day. I'm not necessarily proud of that, right? That's not ideal. It's not like, I'm like, woo, Tina, feel your feelings, be a 13-year-old. Like, this is not the dream situation, but it's real. And I had a day. And to try to get through that day without then crapping on myself for having a bad day or for not being the most mature or for not being able to handle it with all the grace in the world doesn't help. So try to turn a little bit of that kindness back to you. Give yourself a hug. I don't know if I've ever actually given myself a hug, but give yourself a mental hug or a physical hug. I don't know, maybe it works. Just give yourself a break, maybe more than anything else. Just be a little kind to you. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2 goes hand in hand with this. And I don't yet have the source for this information, but I'm going to find it because I think this is brilliant and it's helped me immensely. I was on the phone with my friend Allison the other day, and she was talking to me about how she attended a mindfulness webinar with a woman who is a mindfulness expert. This woman is the resource I'm going to provide for you as soon as I can find it. And she, in this mindfulness webinar, trying to teach people how to utilize meditation and breathing and focus and all of the mindfulness tools in all of our unknown circumstances, suggested that every single person, when they are describing a piece of their behavior, add to the end of the sentence, in a pandemic. I haven't been nearly as productive as I wish I was. In a pandemic. I've eaten far more cookies than I planned to. In a pandemic. I just don't know that I'm working out as much as I should be. In a pandemic. I'm having a really hard time sleeping. In a pandemic. I've lost my patience with my partner or my roommate or my children. In a pandemic. It's just this really simple but really helpful tool that contextualizes all of the things we're doing here. It's a good reminder that we're not just surviving a government shutdown or a restaurant closure or a job loss or an emotional roller coaster. It is a pandemic. It is a global health crisis. It is all new. And if we remind ourselves that that's what we're doing, I think it gives us all a little bit of a break. So when I say I had a really angsty day yesterday in a pandemic, I have less shame for myself because, okay, great. We're all just surviving in the pandemic. So I think it's a really helpful tool, and I think it's something we can do for each other and for ourselves. So if you hear somebody in your world complaining about their own behavior or talking crap about themselves and how they're handling this or whatever, you can remind them to add "in a pandemic" at the end of that sentence. I've had tacos 5 nights this week in a pandemic. Because I think it also celebrates us, right? Like, I have been able to do a lot of really productive things in a pandemic. So there's good and bad. It's a little bit of giving grace, but it's also a little bit of celebration. I just think it's a helpful tool. So take it, use it, apply it. And as soon as I find out this person's name, I will link them in the comments so that you can follow them, because it sounds like they're brilliant and it's somebody that I want to hang out with. So speaking of people I want to hang out with, here's your third little tool, trick, helper, strategy in the quarantine madness. I'm fairly confident most of us have heard about Brene Brown, the people I want to hang out with. She's got a podcast out. If you don't know who Brene Brown is, she is a shame and vulnerability expert. She's a human expert as far as I'm concerned. She's a brilliant researcher who writes really powerful books and stories, and she's now created a podcast. The podcast is titled, let me make sure I get it right here, Unlocking Us. It's available on all the places that podcasts are available. And my coach sent me a specific episode of this podcast because I had been processing with her how I was feeling about the pandemic. And we talked a lot about this last week. A lot of us were feeling really guilty for the feelings that we were having, right? Like, I had a crappy day yesterday, and then I felt like a jerk for having a crappy day when I'm healthy and I'm home with my partner and I'm very lucky that I get to keep working, and there are people on the front lines who just never get to come home and rest and are trying really hard, right? Like, I felt like a jerk because I was comparing myself to everybody else in the world. So my coach at Listen to Me Process sent me this podcast and said it was worth my time listening to. She was right. She's always right. And this podcast is about the concept of comparative suffering, which is when we articulate our suffering and then compare it to somebody else's. So while we acknowledge that we are in a lot of pain, we are having a hard time, we are having a troubling experience, we then compare it to somebody who's actually sick with COVID-19, or to a family who has lost family members to this terrible virus, or to the health workers who are trying to save us, or to the grocery store people who show up every single day just so that we can all get fed, or to the people who have completely lost all of their jobs, all of their income, and are just trying to survive. And then we feel guilty for our emotional process because, comparatively speaking, they're obviously suffering more than we are. The whole point of the podcast is, spoiler alert, that doesn't work. It doesn't actually help anybody, because it doesn't help the doctors and nurses who are fighting for us if you feel worse for them than you do for yourselves. Like, that doesn't benefit anybody. And on top of that, it just makes it worse for you, because then you also add shame and guilt on top of all the other feelings you're already experiencing. And shame is really, really heavy. It's a lot to carry around. We can be suffering in very different ways than other people who are suffering. We can even know that they are suffering far more than we are, and still be allowed to feel our feelings. Brene articulates it way better than I could, and I'm going to link the episode here so that you go and listen to it and listen to her brilliance instead of me just trying to regurgitate her brilliance without nearly as much grace or brilliance. But the whole point is that perspective matters. As long as you know that you don't necessarily have it as bad as everybody else, doesn't mean you don't have it bad. You're allowed to feel the feelings you have as long as you do it with perspective. Get the guilt out of the way, get the shame out of the way, and replace the guilt and shame with perspective, with acknowledging that it is hard for you. It might also be harder for other people, but that doesn't mean it's not hard for you. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to experience those feelings. So now, every time I find myself comparing what I'm going through to somebody else, and then that leads to the guilt and shame spiral, I try to catch myself and acknowledge that I am allowed to have a bad day in a pandemic. And that doesn't mean that somebody's day isn't worse than mine. And it doesn't mean that I don't care that somebody's day is worse than mine. It just gives us a little bit cuts us a little slack, I think, because we're allowed to suffer. And if you think that you are the one suffering the most in the world, then that's okay too. because this is all madness and everybody is suffering in their own way. But nobody's feelings are more important or less important or more valid or less valid. As long as you remember to continually be grateful for the people who are on the front lines, you're not saying that you deserve more, attention, love, kindness than they do. Nobody wins the struggle Olympics. So let yourself struggle and have perspective and kindness for those who are also struggling. That's what I have for you. Those are the three strategies that I'm trying to use in the last 3 weeks since we talked about this last. But I want to hear from you. I want to know how you're doing. I want to know what questions you have. If you want to talk about productivity and creativity, if you want to talk about how to feel your feelings, if you want to talk about health, if you want to I don't care. I am happy to answer all questions about all things. And I am so grateful that I see you chatting. So I'm going to scroll back up and see what y'all have been saying. Keep typing because this is amazing. And I'm grateful for all of you for talking to each other. Look at all the comments. This brings me so much joy. Oh, we got Southern California on here. Hello. We got some Vegas on here. This is so exciting. Lindsay, I'm the most okay-ish I have ever been. Retweet. Depends on the day or the hour. Retweet. Oh, I love that. Lisa Ann talks about this like check-in of colored hearts. So you obviously have several heart options in your emoji world, and each one might mean a different thing, and you can just send that emoji. I love that because sometimes when we're in the darkest parts, articulating it sometimes helps, but sometimes doesn't. And so being able to communicate with a little bit of code like that, I bet is really helpful and freeing. I really love that. Look at y'all saying hi to each other. Hi, Sandal. I haven't seen you in a minute. Oh, brings my heart so much joy. Thank you, Lisa Ann. I really appreciate that. I'm reading Debbie's response here about her daughter. Yeah, there's so much we don't know right now. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can give her a physical hug, but I hope you give her a virtual hug. Y'all, people who are not able to graduate, people who are not able, like when I think about being a senior in high school right now, a senior in college right now, job searching, finding a new grad school, like there's so much different about some of those large life events that it just has to feel so stressful and so exhausting. So I feel for your daughter because that's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress. People are all up in my business. I know, right? The grocery store, it's warfare sometimes. Oh, Kristen, I so hope that you are okay. Haven't left the house for over a month. That's so stressful. Starting grad school. Seeing 3 people, right? Can we think about that? The number of people that you've seen or interacted with in real time since all of this has happened is so much to process. I think -4. I think I have 4 people that I have interacted with. Yeah. Yep. Not hugging people is really hard. I'm really glad that your test came back negative, Kristen. That makes me really happy. Ooh, stop watching the news. That is real. And there's got to be a balance between being informed and not being overwhelmed. I don't know what it is yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. It's still very stressful. Oh, you get to see around your baby. I love that. Oh no. I love you all are talking to each other. It brings me so much joy. Oh, I took yesterday off work because I needed more weekend. Listen, I know that not all of us can do that, especially those of us who are trying to make ends meet and make money work, and those of us who are paid hourly. But if you can give yourself a little bit of a break like that, right? Take a half a day even and let yourself do what you need to do to rest and relax. But give yourself a little bit of grace and space. I love that. I have found little pockets of time. Also, for me, those little pockets of time, I don't know for those of you living at home with people, but for me, it's about like maintaining a little bit of my independence, right? Like I live a fairly independent life. I love my partner and he's my best friend, but we have a long distance marriage because we both travel so much. And so there's so much of my life that feels very like Tina's out on the road, Tina's getting on a plane, Tina's making decisions for Tina, right? And now all of a sudden I'm making food for for both of us all the time. Every meal is about, right. And so and now it feels like about us all of the time. And so finding even just like an hour or two a week where it's not about us, it's about me, just to feel a little independent. Like maybe I watch what I want to watch on TV, or read a book that I know my partner doesn't want to read, or do a puzzle, because James would never do a puzzle for fun. So finding ways to cling a little bit to my independence have been helpful for me, because it makes me feel a little bit more like myself than I've been feeling in all of this. Oh, people in grocery stores, y'all. That's why I try really hard. I'm the person who's trying to smile at people through my mask, and I really hope that my eyes are expressing joy and smiles and not like anger and sass, because I feel like everybody is all tense at the grocery store. Like you can feel shoulders are like up here, and everybody's like trying to survive it. And so I'm trying really hard to be positive, but I don't know that people can tell I'm smiling through my mask, so I don't know if I'm actually helping anybody. Oh, look at you all just being sisters on here, brings me joy. Lindsay Jarman has a question. Never slept well my entire life. Yeah. Yep. This is a really great question. There's a bunch of articles out there. First of all, I'm sure you've done the research, but for those of you that are also struggling with insomnia, there's a bunch of articles out there about why this is happening, and that you're not crazy. This is a totally normal thing to be happening given all of our circumstances. So for those of you that are struggling in the insomnia department, you're not alone. And there are obviously plenty of, I'm not a sleep expert. I'm not a good sleeper. So I just have some strategies that I use to try to make myself fall back asleep. But I've also just sort of, when I find myself laying awake at night, try to get up and just do something, which then throws off my whole sleep schedule either way. So there's not really a good, perfect solution to this. So I'm not by any means an expert, but I hope other people have been able to give you some comments. Lindsay, I do the sounds, like I sleep with a sound machine. It's just like a little app on my phone. It's called Relax Melodies, and it just like calms me back down. So when I can't sleep, I turn those sounds on. I do the breathing app on my phone, or any sort of meditation exercise to try to like calm my heart rate and focus my body on just my breathing, and a little bit of meditation, which is, I'm not a meditative person, but that has helped me fall back asleep. And when I can't, I usually get up and write about it, because whatever is sitting at the forefront of my brain that is keeping me awake isn't going to go away if I don't get it out of me. So that has helped me, but I feel like everybody's going to be a little bit different. Thanks for sharing, though. You are not the only person going through that. There's so much sisterhood. This is just amazing. You're just helping each other. Oh, I love this. Kristen's really excited to have her entire family around. Dan Duncan's in the house. Hello, Dan Duncan. Oh, lots of PMing. This is amazing. Yep. You're all helping each other. This is fabulous. You did hear that Sandel's on here. I know, right? This is amazing. School is difficult for my son. Yeah, that's valid. I don't know how students of all ages, any age, can be coping well, right? Like we talked to my nieces and nephews who are 12 and 10, and the first week they were like, this is cool, because they weren't in school, right? They are officially over it. They done been over it, because they miss their people. They miss learning in a normal way. Nobody signed up to do full online school all the time. And I think they're having a really hard time. I think a lot of the kids are having a hard time with school right now. Smiles like time. I want to try to do it right now, but I can't do it with a straight face. Oh, thanks, Debbie. I hope so. Hi, Alicia. We actually moved out of New York City last summer, which we didn't really put on social media. We sort of forgot. So I don't know that a bunch of people know that about us. We actually are living in Minneapolis right now. This is the first time we've been like grateful to not be living in New York, because it's scary right now. So for those of you out there living in New York or any of the other epicenters, we're sending you love and patience and strength. But we're out here in Minneapolis, which turns out is one of the safer places to be in the country. So we're very grateful for that. Oh, Leah's here. Hi, Leah. I hope so, y'all. I really hope these eyes are working. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm actually helping anybody. Unless I'm just smiling at myself under a piece of fabric. Okay, we're still talking about you're being very helpful to one another. Does anybody have any other questions for me? If not, I have a question for you. So if you're typing, keep typing. I'm wondering what you're doing to try to stay purposeful or creative. For those of you who are working from home or working with your kids on school stuff at home, how are you, especially for those of you that used to be in a workspace and now you're like alone in your house or with your people that live in your house or your space, right? You can't just like go to the kitchen to grab a snack or pop into somebody's cube or desk and have a conversation and get creativity jolts, right? So what are you doing to keep your juices flowing? How are you staying purposeful or creative? Or are you not, because it just hasn't been feasible to stay purposeful or creative in all of this madness? That's something that I have been trying to think a lot about. So I'm curious what y'all have got going on over here. Also, I found that they make pineapple spindrift and it's delicious. Should really get them to sponsor Tea with Tina because there's a lot of spindrift promo going on over here. Okay, you're FaceTiming with friends during the day. I love that. Funny movies, right? I cannot watch sad TV right now. I can't do it. I gotta laugh right now. I have got to laugh. I'm on season 6 of Boy Meets World, y'all. The saga continues. They're engaged now. Corey and Topanga are engaged. They're back together. All the Lauren drama has passed. We survived, but I've just been watching a lot of Boy Meets World. So Coco? Oh, that's really cool. I love that, Caitlin. That's really creative. I love that. I also did house party for the first time last night, which was really fun. Which obviously is supposed to be more of like a social activity, but I wondered if I did it with some of my friends who are also speakers and facilitators and trainers, if we got in there and just laughed a little bit and played some like drawing games or played heads up or whatever, would it make us laugh and get some of the juices flowing? So I love that. Oh yeah, that's very real. Debbie talks about how she's, Debbie talked about how she's doing fine creatively at work, but finding creativity in the non-work spaces has been really challenging, which is very real. She talked about her knitting. For those of you that are drawing or creating jewelry or things like that, I would imagine it's very different for some of us, right? Like you have to channel all of your stuff into non-work creative things. And for some of us, we're feeling a little stalled in that department. So yeah, that's really hard. Every time I get stuck, my creativity is writing. And every time I feel stuck, I try to do something that's not writing, but like very easily creative. I don't know if you can call coloring in an adult coloring book creativity, but if you can, I am nailing it. Because every once in a while when I feel stalled, I just like drift away with some markers in this little book, right? And like, it's like mindless, but still gets my, I don't know, it gets my creativity flowing a little bit, sort of unblocks me. So it shuts my brain off for a minute. So I don't know if that would help, but that is something that has been helping me. Oh, Marco Polo. Emily, I love me some Marco Polo. Let's be friends. Marco Polo is such a cool app. If you're not in on it yet, it's totally worth your time. It's a really cool way to connect with people. It's like Instagram meets, it's kind of Snapchat, except nothing disappears, which is really fun. And it allows you to react to people's videos, and you can do like a whole group. So you can have like a family Marco Polo or a friendship Marco Polo. It's totally worth it. I love it. Oh, that's really fun. Introducing your daughter to music, Kristen. I love that. Yes, House Party does. So you can play heads up on House Party. You can play like there's a Pictionary version. There's something that they call chips and guac, which is really just apples to apples, which is really fun. So yeah, all of those things are sort of integrated into the interface, which is really helpful. Right, this adult coloring book thing. I feels really silly, but I also really enjoy it. It is so delightfully mindless. Yes, y'all make me feel like I'm not alone, which is the whole point. Okay? So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you were able to make a couple connections with some humans. More than anything, I hope you know that you're not crazy and that we're all just doing the best we can in the middle of a global pandemic. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. Alpha Gam's here for you. If you're not Alpha Gams, we're still here for you. But this is a really special time for sorority to prove its worth. So not that you have to be connected to a sorority, but we signed up to help women, and not just our own, but women in general. So I think as much as you can reach out, rekindle friendships and relationships, reconnect with other people, let yourself feel your feelings, but also be kind to yourself. Remember to add "in a pandemic" at the end of a sentence that you're processing about yourself. And remember that comparative suffering helps no one. So try to proceed with perspective, but also some patience. I hope this was helpful. I hope you had some great conversations. I hope you feel a little less alone. I think next week we will do a poll about what else to talk about, because I got a whole list, y'all, but I want to make sure that this is helpful for you. So we'll put out a poll through Alpha Games Facebook about what you want to learn about next week. But thank you for spending your Tuesday afternoon with me. I appreciate you. I care about you. And as always, I'll throw my contact information in here so we can hang out and be friends if that's what you'd like to do. Take care, be safe, be kind, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.